So I specialise in mental health and emotional well-being for the last 15 years, and for the last 8 years also running workshops and courses and professional development trainings at schools or companies or NGOs. So I want to start with what is mental health. There are a lot of words that we throw around, but we don't necessarily know what the hell we're talking about. So it's important to kind of come back to the basics. Mental health is really just a state of well-being. That's what mental health is. The ability to cope with the everyday normal stresses of life. That's pretty much what mental health is. Now it's no surprise and it's not new information that the mental health has been declining worldwide over the last 18 months since COVID. And the impact that COVID has had on our mental health has been huge, because if you think of mental health as the ability to cope with normal stresses, there is nothing normal about what's been happening since COVID began. So we're not dealing with normal stresses, we're dealing with a whole lot of stresses. Most of them are new and foreign to us, and then we're trying to cope individually and collectively, and it's pretty messy. So that's sort of what we're talking about today. Mental health, we're talking about our emotional, psychological, social, physical, spiritual well-being. So all of these together. And if you look at things, say, in counselling terms, in therapy terms, if you look at something like CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, you're looking at the triangle. And the triangle is feelings, so feelings and emotions, thinking, and acting, behaving, our behaviour. So we're looking at how the triangle kind of intermingles with each other. And if you're looking at COVID, something like we're being told that we have to wear masks. So that's our behaviour. Our behaviour then affects the way we feel, which affects how we think, which affects our behaviour. And we go around and around and around. If we're told that we're not allowed to go and socialise, that affects how we feel, which affects what we think, which affects how we behave. So we kind of keep going around, and because of COVID, we're going around for many of us in negative loops and getting a little bit stuck. So remembering that they all affect each other is good for remembering how we can positively also create that dynamic of affecting each other. So just recognising that that's what's going on. So COVID, ever-changing rules, fear, anxiety, loss, polarisation, separation, lack of schedule, lack of freedom, all of these things have been happening at the same time. Okay, so what I want to look at today is mostly 3 different types of mental health issues that are going on with all of this. There's nearly 300 mental illnesses in the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic tool that we use in psychology. There's nearly 300 mental health illnesses or mental illnesses. I'm going to talk about only 3 today. I write them down because I get sidetracked very quickly and start rambling on all sorts of tangents and storytelling, so I try and keep myself together. I'm going to talk about grief, I'm going to talk about depression, and I'm going to talk about anxiety. Okay? Just to give you an overview of what's going on, grief is one of the big ones, I think, that's going on at the moment. When we think of grief, we tend to think of death, okay? Which is true. Grief does equate to losing someone to somebody dying, okay? This is true, and this is true of COVID, and this is true of the period of time when we haven't been able to maybe visit our family and friends, and maybe someone at home has died and there's been a loss back there, okay? So grief is death, but it's also loss, okay? And if you look at it in terms of COVID, what have we lost? We've lost freedoms. We've lost ability to go out and do whatever it is that we want. We've lost schedule, our normal schedule. We've lost income. We've lost our ability to get a job, to keep a job, to get a pay rise. So we've lost a lot of things that we haven't probably thought of in terms of grief, okay? But grief is loss, and we've lost a lot with COVID. If you add being an expat onto this, we've got a whole additional layer of loss. We've lost the ability to fly home if we need to for a family, whatever it is, or if we just want to. We've lost our inner support network. We've lost our bigger social circle. Particularly at the moment, I've noticed a lot of conversations whenever I've been out is people are really, really upset and stressed because other people are going home. And that's the person I confided in, or that's the person that I turned to. And all of a sudden that social network, that circle that we spent years developing in this kind of crazy world that we live in over here as expats is all of a sudden disappearing, and we feel a loss. Okay, so there's a lot of loss that's going on, and it's not a normal, when we talk about normal stresses of life, it's not a normal amount of loss. Okay, on top of that, we have collective loss. So, you know, maybe someone in my family has passed away and I go to a friend because I need them, but they're dealing with a loss, whether it's a loss of freedom, a loss of a job, or someone else in their family is unwell. So all of a sudden, we've got this collective loss. Wherever we go, everyone's in some form of grief. Okay? So grief is a really important part of looking at what's going on with COVID and understanding. There are 5 stages of grief. Okay? For me, it's really important we understand what the 5 stages are so that we feel okay and go, oh, okay, I'm in this stage, that's all right, everything's okay. So the 5 stages of grief start with denial, okay, where we deny that's happening, especially at the beginning of COVID. This is not happening, or, you know, I'm not doing that, or it won't affect me, or it's an old people's thing, it's a China thing, it's someone else's problem always, okay? So particularly at the beginning, a lot of denial. The second phase is anger, where we get really angry about it. And I'm sure we've all been through anger, whether it's relation to COVID or not, but just that level of anger that rises inside of us. Okay. The third stage is bargaining, when we try and bargain to get what we want back. The fourth stage is depression or complete sadness. And the fifth stage is acceptance. Okay. So these are the 5 stages. They're not in a particular order. Okay. You can fluctuate between them. You can even go to feeling really sad and then go really angry again and then go back into denial and then start arguing, and you can actually flick around between the 5 until you reach the last one of acceptance. So we do fluctuate between them all. I know I definitely have. I flick in and out of them. So we think, oh no, I thought I got to the next stage and now I'm back in this stage. So it's not in an order, it's not linear. It's just kind of knowing what the 5 different stages are, being okay with where you're sitting in them. And the main thing really is only when you get stuck in one of those stages of grief do you actually need to seek help outside. Going through the different 5 stages is totally fine, it's all okay. But if you get stuck in one of them and you just can't get out of feeling angry or feeling depressed or constantly bargaining, trying to get your old life back, if you get stuck in one is when you need to actually seek help. Okay? Other than that, it's just allowing yourself the time to go through the 5 stages. Okay? Because each stage then has all these spin-off effects. Okay? So say you're stuck in anger, for example, you start arguing a lot with friends. You become quite argumentative. And it's not because your friends are doing anything wrong or you're doing anything wrong, but that level of anger is building up inside of you, so you get really snappy. Okay? And then we start, when we're communicating with people, we start going into reaction mode rather than response mode. So we're reacting like this. So you can imagine sparks are flying and we're not thinking, we're just quickly reacting, rather than take a breath, take a second, think about what they actually said and then respond to what they said rather than react to what they said. So reaction is quick without thinking. Response is, let me hear what you said and now let me respond with what I want to say. Okay? So when we're stuck in anger, communication gets really out of whack and we find that we're arguing a lot with partners, friends, family, whoever it is, colleagues. Okay, so every one of the 5 stages of grief has a lot of spin-off effects, so we want to know what they are. Even acknowledge for yourself. You go home and go, oh, okay, I'm just feeling angry. That's all right. I can deal with that. I know where I'm at and I can work through it. Okay, so it's important that we know what they are so we know what we can do. Okay, when we're talking about emotions, I always liken emotions to, if you imagine, so here's our gut, okay? Center of emotion sits in the gut. Okay, this is where all our emotions sit, not in our heart, but in our gut. So we have the head, the heart, the gut, 3 kind of separate spaces that coordinate, sometimes not so well, but generally coordinate together. And we have the gut, which is the center of emotions. Okay, in the center of emotions, this is where everything sits. And for me, I'm quite visual, so I imagine that there's like a shelf that sits in my gut, and all my emotions, like a bookshelf. All my emotions are different books that sit on the shelf, okay? So if they're all sitting here, we always think what we're looking for is happy. I want to be happy. You ask children, what do you want? I want to be happy. You ask adults, what do you want from life? I want to be happy. What we should be looking for really is balance, rather than happiness, but balance. Okay? So if all of these emotions are sitting here, all day long we flick in and out of emotions. So something good happens and we're happy and we go back to baseline, back to the bookshelf. Something sad happens, we get sad, back to baseline. Something annoying happens, we get frustrated, we go back to baseline. And we always want to come back to baseline so that they're all happily sitting in a row, doing their own thing. And it's a dance, and all day long, it's like playing the piano, all day long, this is what happens. Okay? The issue arises when one of our emotions gets out of whack. Okay, so say something happens and I get frustrated, so my level of frustration goes up and it goes to baseline. And I don't deal with the frustration. I just let it go, push it to the side. And then later that day, something else happens that's frustrating. So that same emotion, frustration, goes up and it comes to almost baseline, but not quite. And then maybe the next day, something else happens that's frustrating. Frustration goes up and now it's here. And then maybe 2 weeks later, something happens that's frustrating and it goes up and now it goes to here. So you get to a point where that level, whatever the emotion is sitting here. And the very next thing that happens, you can stub your toe or miss a phone call. It can have nothing to do with anything and we explode. And that's when people say they flipped their lid, lost their shit, exploded, whatever it is. It's when there is a level of an emotion that is so out of control and we feel out of control that we literally just kind of lose it. Usually not at the kind of the right person, place or thing. It just happens and there's an explosion. Okay, that's when our emotions are not back to baseline. That's when, because there will be 100 signs that you missed before that emotion got to here, whatever the emotion is. It doesn't just go from 0 to 100. It goes from 0 to 1 to 5 to 6 to 9. There's all these steps that we need to bring our awareness in and notice so that we can deal with them before we hit 100. Okay? So we want to be aware of what's happening. And that's where things like journaling come into play. How can I journal, recognize how I'm feeling, notice what's going on, what am I thinking, why am I thinking this, can I dig a bit deeper? So journaling, because it's on your own, it's private, no one needs to know your story if you don't want them to. So journaling is a good way to really start looking at and processing what's going on underneath all of that. The problem is that stuff will always come back and kind of bite you on the bum. Okay, so if you imagine you get a balloon and you try and put it underwater. I don't know if anyone's ever tried that. If you try and get a balloon and you put it underwater and you push it down, it'll pop back up. And then you push it down and it will pop back up. And you push it down, it will pop back up. That's what happens with undealt with emotions. They pop back up. Okay, so if we're not dealing with them as they're occurring, they are going to pop back up. So we always want to be dealing with things as they happen or within a reasonable amount of time from them occurring. Okay? Does that all make sense on what grief is and how it works? In terms of what you can do, there's loads of things around, say, mindfulness meditation. Okay? Mindfulness meditation is one of my favorite meditations, mostly because it's being present in the moment and there's no, I don't know how many of you meditate, but there's no clear your mind, empty your mind, be still. You know, if you've got a really busy mind and someone says clear your mind wants to scream. And what I love about mindfulness meditation is you're okay where you are. The thoughts come, no problem. Come, go, come, go, come, go. And just be present, sit where you are and not worry about the mind and the thoughts that are coming and going. Okay, so, and every meditation has its own purpose. They're all obviously to calm you down and they all are good. And it's a matter of finding one that works for you. Okay, so mindfulness meditation, like I said, journaling, doing things that are good for you. Okay, doesn't matter how silly it feels. If you feel like dancing around your house, dance around your house. Whatever it is that makes you feel good. Okay, sport is always a good one. If you're a sporty person, go and do some exercise. If you're more of a yoga person, go and do some yoga. Do whatever it is that feels good for you. And of course, seek help if you get stuck. Okay? So that's really grief. Okay, this is all very much kind of in a nutshell. This is an overview of grief, depression, and anxiety for you. Depression. So again, the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic tool for depression, is very much around if you are feeling sad, obviously, or you have a change in behavior, okay, like you stop doing the things that you like doing, your behavior significantly changes, all or most of the day for 3 weeks in a row or more is the diagnostic depression, okay? The way I explain depression is very much like it's a sliding scale, okay? So you have a sliding scale, and I would say that most mental health is a sliding scale. So depression down this end of I'm unwell, like clinical depression, people often say I have depression, I'm depressed, and they throw the word around a lot. Clinical depression is you are in hospital, okay? So that's that end of depression. And then you've got, of course, the other extreme end, which is life's great. I have purpose, I have love, I'm happy, okay? That's that end. Now, where we all sit is kind of anywhere in between, and we move up and down all the time. You literally can move by the minute, by the second, by the hour, from I feel great, oh I feel down, oh I feel happy, oh I feel, and we just kind of sit. And as long as we sit within the middle ground, we're okay. We don't want to be extreme happy all the time, because then you're going into like mania, and obviously we don't want to be clinically depressed. But anywhere in the middle is completely okay, and it's an okay place to be. And then we fluctuate and we move up and down in there, and that's perfectly fine. COVID impact on depression has, as you can imagine, been huge, okay? We have had a hell of a lot more time alone to think, more than we've ever probably had in our entire lives, okay? If you're prone to negative thoughts, then as you can imagine, it can be a very quick spiral down. Even if you're not prone to negative thoughts, when we don't have other people to bounce things off, when we're just going around in our own mind, or we're asking ourselves more questions, we can get sad, depressed, we can get a bit confused as to what's going on and what are we thinking and why are we thinking it, and more questions than answers, which can get scary for a lot of people. Loneliness, okay? Again, as expats, losing our social circle, losing our support network, having family far away. So all of the things that would normally kind of keep us safe are no longer there. Fear, uncertainty, and lack of schedule. Schedule's a really big one when we're talking depression. The number one thing a psychologist will say is to create some kind of schedule, to get some kind of normality and a feeling of normalcy in your life, okay? So we always want to have a schedule going on, even if it's self-imposed, to get moving, you know, to get up and have a shower and do something, even if the something is still in the house, but something, okay? So that's the COVID impact, because normally the three biggest factors are purpose, community, and connection. They're the three biggest factors that affect depression, okay? And there's lots of studies, like in countries where family look after each other all through till old age, and you'll have your grandparents living with your grandchildren and everybody in between, and how the grandparents can still thrive. And then you have places like Australia, America, UK, where you put your grandparents in an old age home and they don't thrive. They're lonely, they've got no purpose, they've got no community, they've got no connection, okay? So COVID has really deeply affected purpose. You know, what are we doing? What's it all about? If we don't even know when we can next fly, or when we can next get a job, or when we can next hug our friends, when we can next go out for a drink, go dancing. Okay, so purpose is a big one. And community and connection. You know, we've had to wear masks, we've had to socially distance, we've had gyms closed, bars closed, restaurants closed, everything on and off, opening and closing all the time. So that sense of community and that sense of connection has really kind of gone out the window. And they're the three biggest factors and determinants of depression, and COVID has impacted us on all those different levels, okay? So again, what can we do? I've got a huge list of what can we do here for depression. And again, looking after yourself and knowing what you need, obviously breathing, okay? Which I know sounds crazy and everyone says breathe, but actually we often forgot to breathe. It's amazing how many times we forget to breathe, or how many times someone says breathe and you go, oh wow, I'm actually not. You're breathing as in you're surviving breathing, but you're not breathing. You're not taking a deep chest breath or a deep belly breath or a deep body breath. We're not breathing. Okay, so breathing makes an enormous difference. And I know it sounds crazy, and I remember at the beginning I'd be like, yeah, because breathing's going to make a difference. You know, I'm going to breathe and then everything's going to be great. It does. Okay, I do a lot of work with teenagers, also with adolescents. And for depression, one of the things we say is when you wake up in the morning, take 3 deep breaths before anything else. And the change is unbelievable. I have a lot of clients that have come from, I wake up in the morning and I don't see the point in getting out of bed because why should today be different to any other day? That's their waking thought. And then we talk about it and we put a sticky note right there on their bed so they wake up, see the sticky note. It says, Romy said, take 3 to 5 deep breaths. And they take 3 to 5 deep breaths. And then they ring me and go, maybe today will be better. Just 3 to 5 deep breaths. So it's incredible how much breathing, slowing down your heart rate, getting oxygen and blood supply can make you start to feel better already, so that you can then do the other self-care practices. Okay? Focus on what you can do. Okay? We tend to focus on what we can't do. We focus on what we've lost rather than focus on what we've got. Okay? So you might not be able to go to the gym at certain times during COVID, but you can do a yoga video on YouTube if you want. You know, I had a friend message me the other day and she said, we're all going to meditate at 3 p.m. And I'm like, where? She goes, online. I said, oh, well, how do I connect on Zoom? She's like, no, we're just doing it. And there were like 4 different countries of friends that at their time zone of 3 p.m. they were all going to meditate, and it was the knowing that you were doing something with other people and sitting down and doing it. And it's beautiful, even though I couldn't see them. I knew they were doing what I was doing. So you can do things like this. Reach out to people that you trust, okay? If you have some negative people in your life, and you know, often we do, maybe they're not the person to reach out to at that time when you're needing support, okay? Maybe reach out to someone else. Another thing we can do is write down 3 positive things for the day, okay? At the end of the day, particularly if we're going through a bit of a bout of depression when we're falling down this end of the scale, there's always something that was good. Even if it was the sun was shining today. I had a nice cup of coffee. I had a good phone call. Whatever it is, just find something that you can be grateful for the day to try and balance the negativity with positivity, okay? Creating a schedule or a routine, okay? So making sure that you've got things to look forward to. Again, going back to purpose, okay? Something to look forward to. And Superman, I wrote down here Superman. Now, did anybody grow up on Grey's Anatomy? Do you remember the TV series Grey's Anatomy? Love Grey's Anatomy. There is a scene where the surgeon, whenever she lacks confidence and she needs to be confident because she's going in to perform brain surgery, she does what we call Superman, okay, where she literally puts her hands on her hips, puts her head up, opens her chest, and she stands there like this and pretends that she's Superman. So she does this and she stands there for about 1 minute. It works. It totally works, okay? Our body and our mind are connected, okay? So if I'm feeling sad or down or negative, my body language is going to go like this, okay? You imagine every photo you'll ever see, any meme of a sad person is the little girl holding like this, okay? And for good reason. Our body closes down, okay? So our body goes down, our voice, our tone of voice goes down, our body goes in, our language goes down, okay? The positivity, negativity. So if I'm like this and I'm talking like this, it's very hard for me to feel better because everything. If I go do Superman, I'm opening my chest and my tone of voice immediately goes up. And that's like happy tone, sad tone, okay? And then my choice of language will change. Oh, I feel better. I would never say that if I was down here. I'd never say, oh, I feel better. It contradicts every part of our natural being, okay? So when we're in this space, something like Superman, or call it whatever you want, but just get into that very open space, chin up, chest out. You know, you'll end up probably having a bit of a giggle because you feel ridiculous, but that's part of it. And and I have clients in Bangkok that do this, and they laugh because they feel crazy ridiculous, but they kind of love it. And they text me going, oh my God, I did Superman. That's really cool. It just opens you back up, okay? And remembering that your body, your mind, your actions, your behavior, your thoughts, feelings, all of them relate. So you only need to try and switch one of them to make a difference. Okay, so if you're struggling to switch how you're feeling or what you're thinking, then switch your body, open it up. That will affect how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. Okay, so as long as you can address one of the three, then you can start changing the way that you feel, think, act. Okay, so you just want to get to one of them. Okay, so Superman is great for that. I'm a big fan of the Superman. So that's depression. And the last one of the big mental health issues that's going on in COVID is anxiety. Okay, particularly with anxiety is collective anxiety. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense to everyone. If you all remember at the very beginning of COVID on the news, we were seeing panicked toilet paper buying. Does everybody remember that? Embarrassingly in Australia. Yes, well done, Australia. So, panicked toilet paper buying. My uncle was one of them. Anyway, what it was one person went and bought a whole lot of toilet paper because they were feeling anxious about the scarcity and what might occur. And then you had other people in the supermarket who were just doing their shopping. And they see this and go, uh-oh, should I be doing that? Oh, maybe I should. And then someone else looks and goes, oh, should I be doing that? And then you see someone else do it and someone else. And then you panic that you're the one being left behind and you should do it too. And before you know it, I mean, even in America, I think there were like riots over buying things in the supermarket. And it's collective anxiety. As humans, we mirror each other. Okay, we are constantly reflecting and mirroring each other. So when we see something like that, we kind of can fall into their line of thinking and actually go home feeling anxious, even though we didn't leave the house feeling anxious, but we kind of caught anxiety in this collective nature of anxiety that's going on. Okay, so anxiety has become a really, really big one. Okay, anxiety and stress and pressure are slightly different. They live vaguely in the same world, but they are slightly different. Stress and pressure are normally based on actual things that do give you stress and pressure, whereas anxiety is kind of almost leading to the world of phobias where you're getting a bit out of reality. Okay, so if we look at what anxiety is, which is super important to understand, in a really, really simple way, anxiety is when we allow our mind to go ahead, think a thought, imagine the worst case scenario. Okay, it goes into disaster land, worst case scenario, plonks itself over there, and we now decide that this is our truth. Okay, so, and it happens very quickly. We usually don't see it coming. Our mind just goes boom, boom. And it starts with a thought. Okay, if nothing else that you take away from today, take away this. Thoughts are not facts. Okay, just because you thought it doesn't make it true. It's just a thought. Okay, so we had a thought, our mind raced ahead with that thought, plonked into disaster land, worst case scenario. We now believe that to be true, and we're stuck here, and we start acting and behaving and reacting to this new truth and changing the way that we function based on this new truth that's not true at all. Does that make sense? So we feel pretty out of control when anxiety kicks in. It's different for everybody. Some people it's shortness of breath. Some people it's a tightness feeling up here. Some people it's more kind of in their stomach. Some people get nauseous and feel like vomiting. Some people get diarrhea. Some people get headaches. Some people get hot flushes. Some people get cold as if the blood has run out of their body. I personally get goosebumps. You know, when your hairs stand up, immediately, bang, I'm like, ooh, I see that. Luckily, because it's a sign that I can see very quickly. Okay, so we all have different signs that show up. It's again a matter of recognizing what are the signs. Okay. The great thing with anxiety also is that we can deal with it. It's okay. All right. There is a really simple 3-step process with anxiety. Okay. The 3-step process, step number 1, the biggest issue here is most people think step number 1 is breathing. Okay. If you are feeling anxious, if you are like where you're short of breath, your adrenaline has kicked in, your blood is rushing, your liver's shutting down, and someone says breathe, you're probably going to want to punch them. Okay, so breathing is not step 1. Okay, and that's the biggest kind of misconception that I hear from people. Step 1 is grounding. Okay, because if you imagine my mind has gone over here and my body is over here, it's almost like an out-of-body experience. Okay, my mind's there, my body's here. I can't breathe because my mind is over here. It doesn't know where my body is and my body doesn't know where my mind is. So I can't breathe yet. So grounding is about how do I get this back here. Okay, so grounding is very literal. You know, we're lucky we live in Chiang Mai. Take off your shoes, put your feet on the ground. Okay, quite literally grounding. If you walk around here after on the grass, you'll feel really peaceful, really calm, really grounded. Okay, if you don't have any ground near you, if you're in a building or you're on concrete, you can also touch your skin. Skin in Ayurvedic is grounding, so grab it hard. Okay, so grounding is touch the ground, touch your skin. You can at the same time name 3 things that you see. Okay, out loud, not in your mind because your mind is still not sure if it's back yet. Name 3 things that you see. So if I was sitting here, I might say, I see the pillow, I see the phone, I see my bag. I see the pillow, I see the phone, I see my bag. I see the pillow, I see the phone, I see my bag. Now I'm back because my eyes are looking, my mouth is speaking, and we're all back together now because I'm functioning as one piece. My body and my mind are back into one piece. Okay? So when we're doing grounding, we physically touch the ground or our skin. We name 3 things that we see so that we've actually brought our mind from there back to here. So we're now here. Now we can breathe. You almost will gasp as if you've come up for air. You'll do the grounding and be like, ah. All of a sudden you can breathe because you realize you've connected back. Okay? So then you do 3 to 5 deep breaths. Okay? Once you've done your breathing and you've got your system kind of completely calmed down, that's when you do what I call a reality check. Okay, so step 1, grounding and name 3 things. Step 2, breathe. Step 3, reality check. And the reality check is, what do I know to be true? What are the facts? Okay, the reality is there's very, very little truth and very few facts in an anxiety-driven thought. Okay? Because when we come back to it, we realize that most of the things were thoughts. So if we can do that separation between thoughts and facts and come back to just the facts, there'll be very little else to freak us out. And we kind of immediately go, okay, I feel a bit better. I have a YouTube video on the 3-step process also where I talk through it. It's in relation to COVID also just because I wrote it at the beginning of COVID. But it's just the 3-step process on how do we actually calm down. Okay? When we're getting a lot of anxiety, our fight, flight and freeze is kicking in. So we're kind of in this heightened state all the time. It can make us jumpy. It can make us get anxious about things that we wouldn't ordinarily get anxious about. Okay, so we can kind of get ourselves into a bit of a spin. So we want to do things like, rather than, go to an hour and a half meditation once a week, do 5 minutes 3 times a day. Because you actually want to get your whole system to get calm and stay calm is the key with anxiety. Not just get calm and then freak out later, but get calm and stay calm. So you want to do, morning, lunchtime, evening, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. Just something to keep your system calm so that your system's not kind of kicking into overdrive and flicking into fight, flight or freeze too quickly. Okay? So with anxiety, you want to be doing regular short bursts of meditation. Longer also if you're into meditation, you find that easy. But if you're not a big meditator, just do shorter bursts throughout the day. Um, soothing music, okay, calming music, fresh air. You know, we're lucky in Chiang Mai. The air is, particularly this time of year, really nice. You know, yesterday I went for a walk around the lake with a friend. It wasn't even really exercise. It was just kind of strolling and hanging and wandering and enjoying the grass and the fresh air. So there's lots of places, particularly where we live here, that we can calm down. There's a lot of ways we can calm down living in Chiang Mai. So they're the main things for what we can do. And writing therapy again, and I know I've included kind of journaling in when we're talking about grief and loss, and when we're talking about depression, and when we're talking about anxiety, I'll always include journaling. One, because I'm a writing therapist, but aside from that, to explain to you why writing therapy, okay? There is something about the pen and the paper that in itself does a whole lot of things without any effort from us, okay? When we hold a pen and a paper, when we're actually physically writing, there's kind of this rocking forward momentum of the written pen that helps us to move forward in life, in thoughts, in emotions, because we are physically moving forward. Different from a computer or a phone, which are quite static, they're very still. So there's no momentum, there's no moving forward, okay? So writing itself allows you to move forward and through, okay? There's so many different types of writing therapy to clear all of that noise, okay? When our head gets too busy and too chaotic and we feel really overwhelmed, we want to write things down. When it gets all crazy up here, it's often what we call white noise, but it's a lot of half thoughts and half sentences. I wish I could, but I want, I forgot, we're like this. And we're kind of picking, but we're not clearing any of them. We're carrying them around. If you imagine everyone has a cloud of this and we're all carrying that around all day and then interacting with other people and their big bubble above their head. And then we wonder why things get misunderstood, miscommunicated, stressful, because we're all carrying this stuff. And a lot of the stuff doesn't need to be there. And again, that's where writing can come into play. Just write down those thoughts. The beauty again with writing is you would not write half a sentence because it's way too unnatural. I want to go and I forgot to. It's human nature. We can't leave a sentence there. We need to finish it. And if you just write down all of those things, you don't need to keep it. You don't need to analyze it. You can throw it away. But get them up and out rather than push them down and let them become that balloon that keeps popping back up. Take them up and put them somewhere safe, which is paper and pen, so that this is empty. And when you meet someone for coffee or whatever it is, you're like, hi, how are you? There's no distracting thoughts going on because you are present, okay? So every time you leave the house or come home, particularly if you have a busy lifestyle, I don't know how people are still busy with COVID stuff, but you know, if you're picking up the kids and then going to work, or you're going on a date and then you're meeting a friend, or you're going to meditation, and you know, when you're switching environments, you want to clear all of that so you can be present in the next environment, not taking the stuff with you. Okay, so you can use writing for that, and then you can simply throw it in the bin. You don't need to keep it. Okay, so writing therapy, there's a trick and a tip and a technique in writing therapy for just about any topic that's going on in life, but this one, just that kind of, you know, verbal diarrhea, getting it out is great for just clearing the mind. Okay, so they're all the different ones you can do for anxiety. Okay, so a lot of them interrelate in terms of you know, we talked about grief, we talked about depression, we talked about anxiety. A lot of them will involve do something that's good for you. Okay, remembering what's good for you. Stick it on your fridge if you can't remember. You know, I love dancing. Oh, I should go and dance more often. The bars are closed. Dance at home. Have a friend over. Put on your favorite song. I have lots of dance parties alone in my room. And the floor's really slippery, so I fall a lot too. But anyway, so just dance at home. If you want to meditate, and like I did this week, you know, have someone phone you or phone a friend and say, let's meditate together. Even if you can't see them, just know that you're connecting. Okay? If you're into yoga, do yoga. If you're into running, run. If you're into weights, do weights. Okay, you don't have to meditate. I know a lot of people say you should meditate, you should do yoga. If it's not your thing, do something else. If your thing is going for a run, go for a run. If your thing is playing football, play football. Okay? Do whatever it is that makes you feel good. Okay? And just remembering to take breaks and to do your self-care practice. Self-care practice doesn't have to be a whole thing. It can be as simple as a few minutes out of your day to calm your system down so that you don't let your levels get out of control. Okay? So self-care, often people say to me, isn't self-care selfish? Particularly parents will say that to me. If they've got kids, they feel selfish because they're meant to be looking after their kids first. But if you remember the days of aeroplanes, I remember the days where we got on aeroplanes, and what's the first thing they say? Fit your oxygen mask first before helping someone else. Okay, and you want to really think about that one, because if I don't put on my oxygen mask first and I try and help someone else, I'm going to be scrambling and probably pass out before I even get to fit them properly. You want to fit yours first, get yourself calm, centered, ready to be able to help others, and then help others. Okay? It is not selfish to do self-care practice. It's not selfish to say, no, I can't go for coffee today because I need some alone time. Okay? It's not selfish to do any of these things. We want to be looking after ourselves so that we can look after our family and friends. And the more people that do that, the more it spreads, so that we are then looking out for the community. Okay? So that kind of covers most of looking at mental health and emotional well-being, looking at it through the eyes of grief, depression, anxiety, and of course the COVID impact on these three particular mental health issues, and all the different things that we can do for ourselves to help keep those things in control. So remembering all of those, and then looking at remembering to do your self-care practices, remembering that you're not alone, remembering that it's okay to not be okay, and that it's okay to reach out for help when you need to. So thank you all for coming. If you're interested, if you don't journal already and you want to learn how to get into journaling, my first book is it's got space for writing. It's a 30-day journaling challenge, which helps give you prompts to help teach you how to get back in touch and start writing. Okay, so that's that one. If you have teenagers in your life, or you have a teenager inside of you, then this one is much more teaching based, teaching you all about mental health, emotional health, functioning in life. And it has like activities and videos and whatever. So this one I do with kids and at schools, and this one more adults, but actually I have a lot of adults that buy this one. But otherwise, thank you for coming. Enjoy your day. You're more than welcome to stay, and there's a menu here if you want food. There's a swimming pool here too. If you wanted to, you can get a day pass at reception, and then you can use the pool and hang and enjoy the garden, put your feet in the earth.